Hello, welcome to Marshall's Mike, first podcast. We'll be discussing some business stuff, different people coming on the show Today we got Chris Richardson from Richardson's Property. I think it's important to know too is how Chris and I met. Chris and I have a pretty good story there. I don't know if you want to share that story or you want me to share that story.
Maybe I'll start and then you can correct anything that any myths that I throw in there. But we have a mutual friend, Townsend Bell, former IndyCar driver, now announcer on Fox for IndyCar. And he and his family had a pretty eccentric father, and they had Odysseys, which were the little dune buggies. They had a big trailer. And so when the Ford Explorers came out,
that was 1991.
91.
Yeah.
They wanted one, and they wanted to make sure that their trailer with these Odysseys, the Explorer, could properly tow it. So we came down there, and I think there had been some pre-negotiation. We walk in with Pat Bell and Townsend Bell, and you go immediately to Pat and say, "Hey, Townsend," and he goes, "No, this is Townsend. You'd been negotiating with Townsend the whole time, thinking it was his dad."
Right. I had gotten a phone call. I just became the sales manager, and I got a phone call that said, "Manager, line one." I pick it up. And lo and behold, I'm listening to this gentleman interested in buying an Explorer, like Chris said. And I thought, okay, this is great. We start negotiating a deal. We set up an appointment, and 3 kids come in and a father. And of course, immediately, like Chris says, I thought exactly it was going to be the father that was shopping for the Explorer. And it turned out to be the 16-year-old son. And, I see that as a good story because what a thing the father was teaching the kid at a young age to go and negotiate on the phone, set appointments, and come in and buy the family car.
Yeah.
And we all piled into the Explorer and grabbed the trailer with all the Odysseys and such. We drove it down the freeway and we came back and we put a deal together. So that's Chris and I met.
There may or may not have been some damage in the testing along the way, but you did get the deal done.
So they did come kind of pop off the trailer there right at the end.
But you're right, Marshall, like that whole thing, I remember sitting in their home office and Townsend's behind the desk and he's got the LA Times or whatever, and he's calling. You couldn't find the Explorers at the time because everyone wanted them. So he's calling all the dealerships and, you give me 2,000 over? Okay, well, they'll give me 15. And he's working all these deals. His dad told him to go do that, and that's how we ended up there. So I think it is an amazing story, and Townsend has obviously had a ton of success.
Well, it's a good experience for you to be involved in too at such a young age, to watch it happen and be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was 30 plus years ago.
Yep. So it's been a while. Time flies.
Now, Chris, where are you from?
I'm originally from Southern California. We moved here in the mid 80s, right after, I remember because the Olympics were in 84. We moved here in 85. My folks went through a divorce. My mom's family somehow ended up here in the 60s. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but my mom's dad was a real estate broker in Paso. He was kind of like the original broker. So we have some roots here and real estate roots. So yeah, I've been here quite a while and obviously seen a lot of changes on the Central Coast, but just think it's one of the best parts of the state and country and maybe the world.
Yeah. What were some of your first things that, you kind of achieved from listening and your upbringing and stuff that kind of got you? Maybe what was your first kind of like job that you did at what age?
Well, back to the story about Townsend and sitting in that office. I mean, part of what I did growing up, my dad was in real estate and I would just sit and watch and listen. And you actually, at a young age, and you learn, you pick up things. You don't understand everything, but you're just kind of a sponge trying to understand what the heck's going on. What are they talking about? What does that mean? What's that all about? And so that's kind of how it started. With folks going through a divorce, and I think that in some ways I had to kind of grow up faster. And so I was always kind of hanging out with the adults and trying to learn.
Yeah.
And
did you do something on your own? Did you have a lemonade stand, or you remember your kind of first job? Was it a paper route?
I don't know that I was the super entrepreneurial at the very beginning, but I definitely wanted to make money. I was, I wanted to get out and do that. I think one of the first jobs was working in a restaurant, which I tell people today with kids like in whatever, high school or college, I think working in a restaurant is one of the most important experiences
What did you learn from that?
Well, I think you learn a ton. You got to work on a team. You got to work with different personalities to execute any given, whether it's a lunch or dinner service. And then you're dealing with people. You got to learn how you could be walking up to a table that couple just got engaged, or they're celebrating an anniversary, or they just came from a celebration of life, and you got to kind of quickly assess what's going on and how am I going to treat this. And I just think those interpersonal skills that you have to kind of, to be effective in the service industry, you got to pick up on that stuff.
I think a customer service business is a great business to learn at a young age because of the facts of what you were just saying there. You know, it's the first impression when people come in.
Yeah.
It's how you greet them. It's how you treat them. It's how the facility looks. Is it clean? Is everybody, you know, on the same team working together to produce the meal and the ultimate experience from them at your business?
Yeah. I mean, it's all the stuff, the little details, like you talk about I remember when you were running the BMW store here, you know, it's all the little details. What's the experience like when you walk in and you check your car in, and then you're waiting for it to be, so, you know, having the right people that can anticipate some of the needs and have the right attitude to help people. I mean, it's all that stuff. So there's not really one silver bullet, but you learn that stuff. And I just think in the restaurant is a great place to do that
Customer
at a young
service.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meet and greets, saying hello and smiling.
Yeah.
Right. Who was the first?
Mindset is a big thing too.
Yep. Who was like the first person that kind of grabbed you and, you know, got you kind of in that business mindset, other maybe than your dad? Or
that's an interesting question. I mean, you know, I can't really.
is there a boss, you know, or something in a job?
There's so many different things along the way. I mean, you know, back to that story we started with. I mean, watching Townsend and his dad interact, and his dad asking him to go make these phone calls when he was 12 or 13 or something. I mean, you know, that started that fascination with like, wow, that's, you know, I want to learn more. So, but yeah, there were different bosses. Like in the restaurant business, never forget the boss that I had. He was kind of militant. He ran a super tight ship, and that taught me like the details. Like I remember one time he comes over, Chris, come look at this table. And the restaurant was kind of dark. And I go out there, and he's like, there's water on the table. There was like 2 drops of water from the prior customers that I had missed when I cleaned the table up. So it was like, whoa. And I was pretty detailed. So, you know, all those little things along the way help you learn, and I think you kind of adapt them and apply them to your personality. And
he said an early stage.
Yeah.
He military style.
He set a bar.
He set a bar for you. You remember his name, where it was at?
Yeah. Steve Hyslop, Chucks of Hawaii in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good experience there.
Yeah, it was
military
awesome.
style training at a restaurant doesn't get much better.
No.
Well, let's see. You got the advice there from that mentor. Obviously, you said you still live by that. You know, kind of a militant style. You're always on time. Obviously, you know, you're putting the effort in to make everything polished and perfect. Can't have 2 drops of water.
I'm laughing because if any of my friends watch this, they won't agree with the on time part. So the detail piece, you know, I'm pretty detailed, but anyways.
Yeah. And now that you've come into your own business, you know, you and your father partnered up, I believe, in the real estate business. Mm-hmm. How do you keep motivated? Who like keeps coaching you like you had that mentor at the restaurant? Who keeps the spark alive? You
know, now who it is just peers. And I'm in different networking groups. Our company's affiliated with Sotheby's, and I'm in another network group called Realm. And these are kind of, you know, tend to be kind of places where the best of the best are. Right. And so you just, you know, you're constantly trying to build relationships and constantly learning and refining in the business I'm in. And I think in any business, really, if you have a passion about it. So, you know, just seeing what other people are doing and trying to figure out like, okay, that doesn't totally fit my personality or my approach to business, but man, there's a nugget in there somewhere. So that motivates me. Right. You know, one of the other big things too is just with the business that we were fortunate enough to have here on the Central Coast and grow, is culture. I think is so critical to any organization. Sure. and really working on that. So that really was a motivator to me. I had an opportunity to go to New York with a group of professional CEOs from San Luis Obispo. It's called the World Business Forum. And in 2014, the first year I went, there was a guy by the name of Simon Sinek, who a lot of people know of. And he's kind of a thought leader on leadership and culture and stuff. And it really transformed my thinking, because his whole leadership approach is if you can create a culture where people feel safe and supported and you get the right people in the room,
Yep.
amazing stuff can happen. And so
100%.
because before that I was like, I don't know if I'm necessarily a great leader. I thought a leader was like you're born with it, like Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, and I wasn't sure. I didn't think I was born with that. But then understanding it was broken down that simply,
Right.
I go, I can do that, and that I credit that changing,
Sure.
kind of the trajectory of our company.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of organizations miss on that, and it's not that difficult, but you got to be focused
Oh,
on
I totally get it. I remember I was at Perry Ford for 16 years and I had an opportunity to make a move up, but it was going to be a challenge to make that move up. And was I that leader?
Yeah.
And I'd been somewhat of a leader of a sales team and such in the business, but now I'm going to be the leader of the whole store. And I was scared, man, going in because, I left a for sure deal. Now I'm going into a business that's different people and so forth and so forth. But that's what I, pride myself on is taking hold of all the people that were in different positions, figuring out what's the best position for them and where, and then making a team.
Yeah.
And coming all together with the ideas and cultivating, a good team effort, positive attitude to give the customers the best experience.
Yeah.
So
I can relate to that fear of having to be a leader
time.
because you feel like you got a piano on your back, but the whole premise is that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to carry the burden. You have to create the culture and get the right people in the room and let those leaders around you perform.
For sure. Well, just think how many people have been in fear of doing something, but the ones that face the fear and move forward with their idea and take a hold of it and structure it and become successful. And sometimes you don't, but you go to the next one.
It's definitely a motivator.
Yeah, for sure. So who got you into real estate? Part of it.
My growing up around my dad's been in the business, I don't know, 50 years or something. So he was all over me to get my license at 18. And so I did and didn't know how I was going to use it or what I was going to do or even if I was going to go into it.
Yeah.
But he definitely, made that probably a requirement. That kind of,
and that was a fear moment. I would think of some sort.
It was uncertainty about okay, well, I guess he's telling me I need to go do this. That's what he does. It's interesting. I've been going to meetings with him, but I'm not so sure yet that that's what I want to do, but I'll get the license. And so not that it's that hard in California or maybe any state to do that, but it was some effort to do it at an early age.
Yeah. How did you, now, your dad was in the business. So you say it was kind of easier to transition into that. Passing your license, I'm sure, was a little bit of work that you had to do and such. Was there another job you had going, or how did you kind of make sure that financially you were going to be okay going in? Were you doing something else, or
well,
did you have a salary base first before commission? Because real estate's commission.
Yeah, I had different jobs growing up. I worked as a greenskeeper at an executive 9-hole course in Los Osos Sea Pines. Early on, had the restaurant job in college. So I did different things through college. And then after I graduated from Poly, I went to grad school down in SoCal at Loyola Marymount. Post that, I went into the pharmaceutical industry in like a sales position and then left that to go to a startup in the Bay Area. So I did, want to try some other things, even though I had been working in real estate. And I'm really glad looking back on it that I did that.
Right.
Because I learned so much in both of those roles.
When was that moment you said, okay, I feel good with this. This is a great thing.
To get back into real estate?
You were into real estate and you were starting to feel, okay, I'm really grooving here. Richardson's a great name. It's been a long time name in the community, so I should stick with this. Where was that kind of moment?
Well, I can tell you.
Did you sell a house first?
Exactly. I was, after the 2 jobs I mentioned, I decided, I really enjoy real estate. I want to get back into that. So I joined some commercial guys. I hadn't had any commercial experience. So I joined them in Southern California, worked with them for a while. Great guys, learned a lot. And one day the office was in Westwood and I was living in Torrance Redondo Beach, and I leave the office, drive home. It was about an hour and 30 or 45 minutes to get home, and that was the moment I called my dad. I said, "How's the business doing? Are you growing it? Do you need any help? Could you use any help?" And he said, "Yeah, it's I've got my hands full." So I just it was because in the real estate business, you're building a book of business, and typically it's pretty geographically
Right.
focused, and so I knew if I was going to build a real estate business, if I had kept going there, it would have been in Southern California, which may have been great.
Yeah.
But I just kind of knew that I wanted to be back on the Central Coast ultimately.
Yeah. Not a bad place to live.
And I wasn't happy about the hour and a half, drive home. So that kind of pushed me over the edge.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and then we went from there.
Everybody's in business. Everybody has their ways. What's your way, Chris, of doing it a little different than someone else, perhaps, that you see has worked for you in the businesses of the real estate market? Give a secret away, would you?
I don't know, Marshall. I think that one of the big things today that I think a lot about is authenticity. I just think with all the stuff that's coming at us, whether it's email marketing or social media marketing, I think so I'm constantly trying to think about, like, how can I present who I am and how I do business authentically, because I think that's what people are thirsty for that,
right?
Because there's a lack of it, and obviously with the pandemic, and we were not socializing like we do, or so I think that's something that I think a lot about, and so like this is great because it's we're having a conversation and you can be yourself and talk about your experiences. So that's kind of, when you ask me that question, that's where my thoughts go to.
Well, it's right on. I mean, I remember I'd hang out at my grandfather's dealership. He was a dealer back in Jackson. Actually, it was probably my first job when I was like 5 years old. I had to sweep out the parts department before I could go hang out and play in the showroom cars.
Mm-hmm.
And
where you really wanted to be.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that was obviously the main focus. But I went from there, and I occasionally go back, hang out at his office. Later on, he sold his dealership, and he opened a used car office just to keep himself busy. And I remember listening to him do deals with people, and how you're going to finance that, and how you're going to do this and that and this. And I recognized in him the authenticity that you say. Mm-hmm. And I remember him telling me, "Boy," he looked right at me, and he goes, "If you do and say what you're going to do, mm-hmm. you're not going to have a problem in business, and you're going to sleep good at night.
Yep.
Be authentic, and tell them like it is. And whether they might not want to hear it or not, that's the way it is. Then you feel good about yourself, and they'll understand that they can have a trustworthy person on the other end, and it just goes from there."
Well, that's another big thing in the real estate business, especially today. The market's changed. The markets are always changing. Today we're dealing with interest rates a little higher, markets a little bit sluggish in general, or generalizing. But I think that having the confidence to tell people the truth, because I think so many times in a sales or sales consultative position, sometimes we want to maybe skirt the direct truth to move the sale further, and I think that's I'm not saying that that salespeople are misleading. It could be about price, like seller wants above market, and you kind of don't really head it on. Yeah. In today's market, that's kind of death sentence on a listing. So but back to what you're saying, it's having the confidence to say, well, I need to tell you why this is where I think the market value is, and having the courage to have that kind of hard conversation, maybe.
Sure.
I think it's so important, and you touched on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's laying out the information for the customer to make the decision. Yeah. And sometimes it's tough. Yeah. Sometimes you have to give them some things that they probably might not want to hear. Yeah. But if you're listening, you're trusting, and they're trusting, it's a good thing. What are your two or three things that you do every day? It could be personal things, it could be work habits, it could be what have you. Like I remember when I was in the car business, and you're in sales. You have to be ready, you have to be geared up, you have to be positive, you have to have a good mindset. Yeah. I'd usually, I'd wake up at a certain time. I remember I'd get in the car, I'd go to the pool, swim, right? I listen to music on the way home, kind of fire myself up, get myself ready. Now, what do I do on the way to work? Do I listen to more music? No, I would listen to a podcast of a guy named Grant Cardone. He was helping us train at the time in the automobile business. Fire up, have a meeting, rituals that you do to make yourself motivated each and every day.
I think it's...
What did I take you away from today?
Well, I did skip yoga to be here on time, and you did give me a little bit of a time that was ahead of when we started, which I appreciate. So I was here on time. But yeah, a workout. I mean, right now I'm doing yoga, which has been great. Flexibility, strength, So that's a ritual that I like. We're part of a sales training system that I really like, and I like it because it's authentic to kind of how I approach the business and how a lot of our real estate professionals do. It's called the Ninja Selling System, and one of their things is in the morning you get up and you do a positive reading. You write down your gratitudes and you write down any affirmations, and just, I don't do it every day, but I try and do it 2 or 3 times a week, and it's pretty amazing those days when you get up and before you look at anything, email, social media, you go do that. It gets you in a mindset, which I think that's kind of what we're talking about, is what's the habit and the ritual that gets you going to get you in the mindset to go attack the day, and in a positive way. So those are some of the things that I do. I have 2 awesome pups that and so seeing them in the morning is awesome. And but yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I try to do. And typically when I do those things and I don't get sidetracked, because life happens and things, some mornings are different, but the mornings where I'm able to kind of get in that mindset or space before I launch into the day, it seems to typically be a better day.
Right. I remember going through the car business, 30 years plus in it. And, back in the day, it was work. Come to work, grind 10 hours, go home, do what you do, go back to work, grind until I met this one mentor at the BMW store. And it's Chuck Hebert, very successful car guy in this area. Has made a lot of people store owners from sweat equity. I was on that program with him. But he instilled one great thing to me is, Marshall, it's about your family and it's about work. And he really put this mindset in me, you have to take time with your family, with your pups, with some fun. You have to make it, you can't just work. You have to have some kind of, system where it's a little of everything so you don't get burned out. Your business, any business, you can get burned out easily. I think it's so important to have some kind of, rest, play golf. I know you play golf. We played golf a lot together. It's important to feel good with your family situation in your free time, and also to make it so you don't get burned out.
Yeah, 100%. And I heard something recently, you hear work-life balance a lot, and I heard it spun a little differently into work-life harmony.
There you go.
Because what does balance really mean? They're harmonious. Work's always there's gonna be things that's gonna flare up. There's gonna be issues. You're gonna have to maybe step away from the dinner table to take a call, but do you have the harmony of the two?
Right.
So I think a lot about that too. Right. Because, the work part, when you're passionate, like you were and continue to be in the car business, and I am in the real estate business, I mean, it's a part of your life, and the people you work with become your friends, and your clients in some cases become your close friends and almost like family. So I think that notion of work-life harmony is a good one to think about, because I don't even really know what the balance means, but you do have to have it. You got to have time away.
Definitely.
I think the pandemic kind of maybe brought that more into people's thinking, because I think in our culture in our country is work, is such a big part of our lives. But it's so important to have the
time away,
the rituals, the time away, the recharge. I mean, it's critical.
Yeah. I mean, back in my day, it was somewhat a little easier for interruptions. I was in the beginning of the car business. We didn't have internet. We didn't have phones. We didn't have all these interruptions. I think it was a lot slower of a pace in the world. Business was done a lot, easier. You didn't have distractions, right?
Yep.
You didn't have the phone buzzing on the side and you're looking over at her. You didn't have this coming in and this coming in. And then it's just, gradually it's now. It seems like now. And where does a person cut that to a point to where you don't answer the phone or you turn the phone off and you not worry about it being right now and, and taking hold of what you're doing, but also recognizing, there's other things so much coming at you. How do you handle those?
Yeah.
You kind of have a system where you have like a list of things you do for the day, or do you just?
No, I mean, I think
you kind of take it as it comes, and
time blocking is something that I think you can. I certainly could get better at it, but carving out time where you're not doing certain things or focused on a thing, I think is important. But I think it goes back to the conversation about authenticity. I mean, people, I think, like picking up the phone and calling someone, how are you doing, versus the message on Instagram. So I think it dovetails back to what we were talking about.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough because it's gotten fast.
Yeah.
And there's so many things coming at you. So I think that's something that all of us are trying to figure out.
Right. It is fast now. Mm-hmm. It's fast and fierce, and people expect it to be fast.
Now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the art of slowing maybe the deal down, right?
Yep.
Sometimes instead of speeding it up.
Yep.
What was a point in time in your career that you kind of like, oh, that was a bad one? I made a mistake. How am I going to handle this? Maybe what was it, or what have you, that you learned a lot from it? I know you don't make very many mistakes, Chris.
No, I'm laughing because we're humans, they happen every day. So, but I remember one time I was going to Cal Poly. I was in the office late. I had made a mistake. I don't remember what it was, but it was fairly significant, or at least in my mind at that time, I thought, oh my God. And at the time we were sharing an office with a gentleman who Kevin Nichols, who's a financial advisor.
Great guy. I love Kevin.
And he comes in, he was working late too, and he goes, what's going on? And so I kind of gave him a, overview of it. And he goes, Chris, when you make a mistake, own it, apologize once, mean it, and move on.
There you
go. I was like, oh my God, that's like, piano off my back. Cause you're trying to be, especially I think early on in your career, you're trying to be perfect, which is not a reality, but you're striving.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah. So that was, I don't remember exactly what the mistake was, but it seemed catastrophic at the time. But that really helped me when they do happen to own it, you know, and just I think that I keep mentioning authenticity. I think that skirting around a mistake is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah,
owning it, acknowledging it.
Yep,
and move on.
Yep.
It's not to diminish. And not to say that mistakes, are okay in a sense, but like I think that's really important to just owning it
is big.
Yeah.
Car business, there's a certain feel of what a salesman is and thought and what people think, and there is mistakes made. There's numbers presented. There's all kinds of little issues that can happen, and if you just say, "Hey, I made a mistake there. I'm sorry about that," and move forward, show them what they were looking to see and make it happen.
I think people and customers or clients appreciate that when you own it versus trying to skirt around it. Well, this happened and that, and versus, hey, I just missed it, or I forgot to get back to you.
Right.
I'm sorry. How can I make it right now?
Kind of on a same scale, but a little different. When business gets tough, how do you react? You saw the interest rates change, obviously, in the home business, car business, all kinds of businesses that were involved with loans and rates. It got tougher. Mm-hmm. How do you look at that? I can tell how I saw you look at it. I want you to tell me what you did to say, okay, this is our obstacle. I got to gather what? Do I do what? What did you do? Stay in the game.
Well, it's along the lines of what we're talking about. Like you have to constantly be learning, and you have to accept that things are going to change and there's going to be challenges. Because at times it's like, oh, I want to get through all these challenges and get to a place where it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Well, smooth sailing doesn't exist.
Right.
So understanding that there's going to be headwinds, there's always going to be issues, whether it's interest rates or insurance. Is a big issue right now. So you just got to kind of know that that's never going to stop. There's going to be, factors, issues, and you just have to lean into it. And even though you don't like it, it's uncomfortable. You have to go learn something maybe you didn't know, and it might impact the volume of business that you're doing. But that's just life and business.
I remember talking to you and calling you once. I don't even know if you remember it. It was that time where the interest rates were going up. And it was also a time where I think you guys were having to do a different structure of how the deal went down, who got paid the splits and all this.
Yep.
And
Last
you
year.
had the most positive answer to it was just an obstacle. And how are we going to do this? And how are we going to keep moving forward? You've never said, oh, yes, this is horrible. This is going to ruin the real estate. I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
How are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? How is this going to change us? We're not going to get paid as much. And you just had a positive answer to it. Well, Marshall, this is something that comes along that you just have to deal with, and we move forward. And what we're going to do is we're going to get together and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you have that ability you're positive.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just don't know
mindset.
What's the alternative? It's like, why would you want to get mired in what might happen and how it might impact you? I mean, who knows what the future holds? You have to be adaptive and you have to try to lean in. And I mean, in any challenge, there's an opportunity somewhere, and you may have to shift and, retool. But that's kind of the fun of business. I mean, it's like figuring out, okay, I just got dealt a new hand, and here's, it's not very good. How am I going to deal with that? So I'm human, and I can get, down like anybody. I'm sure you've had that in your career, but trying to get back to that mindset of like, okay, man, that's not going to be fun, but how are we going to lean in? How are we going to lead through it? How are we going to attack it? Yeah. And what opportunities may be created from that challenge? So it's not easy to do, and I get stuck in it too.
Right. Now, on the other end of it, have you ever had a moment in the career and said, I'm done. I'm going to throw in the towel. I'm out. I can't do this. I mean, you work with your father.
That happens a lot with my golf game, Marshall. I constantly am thinking about putting the clubs on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I'm sure you had it. Like, there's days where you just don't want to do it.
Right.
And you just... Well, I think that makes me think of something else. Like, there's a great saying, some days you're the hammer and some days you're the nail. Like, if it's a day where I'm the nail, I mean, I used to really grind through that. Sometimes when that happens, I just say, okay, it's not my day today. I'm going to stop pushing. I'm going to go golf, or I'm going to go walk the dogs, or, and then I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and I'm going to start over tomorrow.
Right.
And I think that's we're humans.
Yep.
We're going to have bad days. We're not going to be on our A game every day. It's impossible. So having the grace with yourself to acknowledge that and to maybe check in early that day and just start over the next day.
I used to reach out a lot to people, to kind of reset myself.
Yeah.
I like to hear someone say, well, Marshall, why would you do that? You're so good at it. Mm-hmm. Or, your boss even telling you, hey, I get it. Go take a day off. Go play golf. Go do something. Let's get re-engaged. Let's get re-excited about it and then move forward. You've been a local a long time now, Chris. What is the community giving you? And what do you do back and, in that aspect of it? And how do you see it helping, and you helping the community be better?
Well, as you know, and if you've been here on the Central Coast for a while and been involved in the community and been in business, I mean, it's just an amazing community. I mean, it's like we talked about at the top. I mean, I think it's a special part of California, a special part of our country, and probably a special part of the world. Every time I travel somewhere, and it could be an amazing trip, you get off on the tarmac in San Luis and you smell that ocean air. Yeah. You're happy or at least I am happy to be back here and grateful to be able to live here. And a big part of that is the people. It's always, same thing with like an organization, like great organizations, at the end of the day, it's about the people.
Right.
So
what kind of community stuff have you done?
My community involvement, I've been fairly active over my professional career with different committees and boards of within organizations.
What were some of those?
Well, one of the big ones was
Chamber.
Chamber. I was on. Yeah, I remember meeting with Ermina Kareem and Courtney Kenow at the time was in a legislative position, and I was working with a developer client, and we needed some support. And the Chamber, as you know, had a lot of clout within our community. And meeting with them and kind of learning about the Chamber. I didn't really know much about it, and going, man, these women are amazing, and what they're doing is incredible. And that got me intrigued. And then they asked me to be on a committee, and I did that for a while, and then on the board. And it, it was such an amazing experience to see how that organization worked and the influence that it had to shape our community. So that was transformational for me from an experience standpoint. And then out of that, I think it was like 2014-ish, the San Luis got some funds to update their land use and circulation element. They put a group together of community members. I think there were 15 or 16 of us appointed by the council. And we worked as a task force to, work through and come up with concepts and ideas to present back to the planning commission and the council on what's the vision for the community from a land use development and circulation, which is tied to that. So that was a lot of work, but it was an amazing experience. And so those have been the ways that I've been able to give back, I feel, to the community. And then, when you do stuff like that, you give, but you also get, even though you're not doing it for that. So those were some amazing experiences that come to mind when you ask me that.
Speaking of getting and giving, you and your dad have been in it for a long time. You recently sold.
Yes.
And you're still on. Mm-hmm. You're advisor, consultant still, and you're actually still in the process of selling and such.
Yep.
Now, you may see yourself leading, doing other things or stuff. Are you mentoring anybody now? Do you have anybody that you're taking under your collar and saying, this is what I see, this is where we could go, I'd like to help you get there? Are they coming to you, and are you kind of taking an extra, leap into someone and seeing possibly what, you've been doing and have done?
Yeah.
I want to share it.
About a month ago, I was in Firestone having lunch with a friend of mine, and I walk up to the bar to pay the bill, and a young man at the bar says, "Hey, are you Chris Richardson?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I follow you on social media." And I'm like, "Me?" And so, but he was interested in the real estate business. And so we emailed back and forth. We had lunch yesterday at Firestone.
Nice.
Again.
Not a bad spot.
No, great spot. Iconic San Luis Obispo. And he's on the Cal Poly football team, and he's interested in entrepreneurship and business, and he's interested in real estate. So we had lunch and had a great chat and got to know him and what he's thinking about and kind of some of his background and some of what he, is looking forward to post-college. And so I enjoy that stuff. I mean, it was just awesome that, he had the interest.
Yeah.
And so
it says a lot about you. He found you online, came to you, and introduced himself. I mean,
well, yeah, and
you got to appreciate that right there. How many people actually come up and introduce themselves and say, "I like what you do"?
No, his name's Spencer. I mean, this guy is going to be massively. He's just, great young man, and has the desire to make connections and meet people and ask questions. And so we had an awesome conversation. And I said, "Hey, anything I can do to help you?" I sent him afterwards a link. I said, I would get your license.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was recommended early on. And so that kind of stuff I really enjoy when people, when young, talented individuals show interest and want to learn. And and I enjoy, sharing a little bit about what I learned that may be helpful to them. So that was a lot of fun yesterday.
Yeah. Business. Talking about business here, what can you do better in business? But it's also people, and how do you learn, early on, to be a good business person or be a good person? And I'm just kind of referencing to meeting Spencer, but Spencer having the mindset and taking the challenge to come up and introduce himself to you, and maybe not knowing, you might just say, "Hey, take off. Who you know what I mean? He made the effort. And I love to see that. I don't think we see enough of that in this world today, where people are taking the initiative to go out and be better, to better themselves and get involved with someone that they're interested in and listening and being mentored.
Yeah. Well, I look at it and think that, like, what an opportunity for him. If your characterization is right and there's not a lot of that, and then he's doing that, what an opportunity for him to excel.
100%.
By having the courage to reach out to people that he doesn't totally know. So,
Yeah.
but it showed me something about him, and
It's got to make you feel good.
yeah, it was super cool.
I mean-
And it's fun. I think the other thing that I think of with that too is, I remember early on in my career reaching out to people like that,
Yeah,
and some of them, sometimes you get snubbed.
sure.
I don't have time, whatever.
Sure.
You're not important.
Right.
When you're young and you're
Right.
just trying to learn. And
Right.
so I think about that a lot too, because I don't want to leave somebody with like when he reached out to me and introduced himself at the as I'm paying my tab at the bar. If I had just been, oh, hey, nice, and walked out and not
Right.
engaged him, I mean, he would have been like, oh, I met that Chris, and
Yeah.
didn't really give me the time of day.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not doing it for that, but like you
Right.
think about that, like you could have such a positive impact on somebody,
Yep.
or negative if
sure.
you're not paying attention to it. So I just look at those as such opportunities to connect with someone who's showing interest. And
So someone's showing interest in starting a business, right? What do you tell them? You started the business. What do you say to them? What kind of advice do you give a person that wants to go out and start a business?
well, a lot of times depending on their age, I say, well, you should probably work in the restaurant business, like we talked
Yep.
about, to learn about people. But I mean, I love entrepreneurship, and I just think, there's so many opportunities out there, and people have such amazing ideas and spins on things and improving stuff. So I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship and people chasing their dreams. I mean, obviously you got to balance that with risk, and you got to balance it with capital investments and those sorts of things. So
Right.
strategic or calculated risks. But
lay it out there.
I guess I encourage, but I also, back to what we were talking about earlier, if I hear something and I'm going, I don't know about that, I might ask them hard questions. Not that I know, but
Right.
so, I think it's an evolution with starting a business. I don't
Yeah.
think it's necessarily you're just sitting there and you have an idea and you go start it. I think for me, things have always evolved at, like, you learned this and then that,
Yeah.
and that led to this.
Yeah.
So I think, that's there's like a progression to launching
Right.
a business.
I think too, at an early age, it is important to be able to handle the word no. And how do you hear the word no? Well, first of all, you got to put yourself in a position that's going to be uncomfortable. I've always said and tell people, younger people that are going to get started in a business or something, I think everybody should go be in the car business for 6 months. You hear
After the restaurant business.
after the restaurant business, you are told no 20 times before you hear a yes.
Yeah.
And how do you break that barrier, So at what age and what time in your life do you put yourself in a position where you can be told no? I think it should be very young. And I'll tell you a story. My son and I were down, he had a basketball tournament that he was going to. And his teacher had given the kids the assignment, I want you to go put yourself in a position that's going to be very uncomfortable for you to be in and to act on it and see what the outcome comes. So we're staying at there was that boat. What's that boat called down in Long Beach that you can stay on? He was at a basketball tournament. I thought it'd be cool. We stay
Queen
on this
Mary?
ship, Queen Mary, I think it is, or what have you. It's a hotel. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to see the submarine, and we had a time frame, and Dad's, okay, we got to do this, but he wants to go through the submarine. And so we go out there, and we didn't think there was going to be a line. And there's a line, and there's a long line. And we got about 20 minutes. It's going to take about 10 minutes to 15 minutes to walk through the submarine. I said, why don't you go up front and say, hey, I got to go to a basketball game. Would you mind if I went first? He's like, I'm not doing that, Dad. I said, yeah, you are. Wasn't that your assignment? Boom. He got the courage, got the nerve, went up to the line. No problem. Bring your dad up. We rolled on through. But he took the initiative, understanding he might be told no. Now, I think the more times younger people, business people, take a challenge upon themselves, whether it's going to be a yes or a no. The more times they do it, the easier it's going to be. Because they're going to learn rejection. And you have to learn rejection. I mean,
I was put in that. I was put in that same position. I mean, I as a kid, I was told I was, recommended to go do stuff like that by dad a lot of times.
There you go.
I hated that because you didn't want to be told no or whatever. Right. But it does push you outside of your comfort zone, and so I think that's
things aren't going to. Yeah, you got to earn things.
Yeah,
it's not always going to be a free ride in this world. You're not always going to be able to just wake up and have a deal in front of you and work the deal. You got to put yourself out there.
I heard something recently. A guy, it was on social media. I have to go back. I don't even remember the guy's name. It wasn't somebody I knew, but it was an interview like this, and he was talking. They were asking him about, like, man, how do you handle the setbacks and the adversity and the failures and all that? And he said he said a few things, but the big takeaway that I had was he called it a success tax, and he said that's those. Yeah, I wanted to be there earlier in my career, but I wasn't. I had to go through these failures and setbacks and struggles and hard times. So yeah, I think it kind of touches on what you're talking about. Like, back to like, how do you tackle those days? If you can pivot the mindset to be like, this is just part of the journey that I'm on. And his term success tax was kind of cool.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've had for someone? Say like 5 words.
Best advice.
Best business advice someone's given you that you really stuck with and felt that translated into you moving forward. And
well, for me, it was that experience I had in New York about leadership and culture. That was probably the best kind of mindset and approach that helped me tremendously. And I think employing that and trying
culture,
culture, and then attract the right people and get them in there, and then that's where the magic happens. So that's probably been the most transformative single thing. Yeah.
What's the biggest tool you use right now, every day, for your business? Could be an app, could be what have you.
Well, I mean, I have a CRM now that I'm using. I've never really used one. I was talking to this young man, Spencer, about it yesterday, and having a database and a group of people. Like, I think a lot of times we think more is better, but actually less is more. And like having this whole selling system that we're part of, Ninja, their whole thing is about have 250, 300, 400 people in your database that you are hyper connected with. You're calling them. You're talking to them. You're reaching out when their kids graduate. You're congratulating them on a business success, and you're just, what's going on in their life. And if you, in our business, in the real estate business, if you do that and you're hyper connected, you don't need 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people that you're sending a generic monthly email to. If you're in flow with those people and connected with them on a real authentic way, there's more business than you can handle. So
they turn business towards you too.
Oh,
you're a referral system from those 200, 300 people are going out into the other words and such.
So that technology, but the other thing I just thought of, AI and chat GPTs, and it's just incredible. I mean, and so I'm really trying to think about and use it I'm just trying to learn and use it in different ways. I'll give you an example. The other day I had an LLC that I'm in, the manager sent and said, hey, we need to update the operating agreement or an amendment to the operating agreement. So they sent me the new one, and I said, well, do you have a red line so I can kind of track what's changed? Well, no, we don't have that. So I took the one that I had signed previously, the one that they were proposing, put them in chat GPT and said, hey, can you analyze this and come back and give me a summary of the changes, and boom. And it was spot on. I went back and kind of checked it and stuff. So it's just an example of, you ask about a technology that I'm using, and I don't know a lot about it. I'm learning, but I just think it's that probably would have sat on my desk for 3 or 4 days because I
Right.
would have procrastinated reading it because you have to read both and line item and highlight. And ChatGPT did it, and then I checked it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh yeah, these changes
Well,
are
you
fine.
might have had to go to a lawyer. You might have had to take it to this or that.
They were fairly modest changes, so it wasn't, didn't rise to that level because I think you need that experience from an attorney on something legal. But this was something that was a little more technical. But the point is just that, like, that technology is just
It's there now,
it's
isn't it?
insane. And I think it's about like the user and how are they thinking about using it. At least
Yeah.
that's been my experience with it. So I'm trying to think about, like, I'm always trying to think, like, is that something that I could AI help me
Yeah.
and augment what
Sure.
I'm doing or what I think? So that comes to mind when you ask me that question.
I played around with it a little. It's amazing. Do I think it's going to take the authenticity away from everything? No. You still got to feed the information in. You still got to, review it and put your points in there. So it'll be
Pretty damn good though, Marsh.
It's pretty interesting.
It's scary. I mean,
yeah.
who knows where this is going to take us? But
yeah.
I mean, I do
tell you.
agree today. I mean, I think that, as we've talked about, that human connection is so important. But
Yeah.
but augmenting it with this machine
Yeah,
learning,
no, I get
that's
it.
so good.
Yeah, but you still need our personalities putting that deal together. You're not going to ask AI to say, hey, close that deal for me.
For now, and hopefully for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future holds, but
Yeah, I don't either. Well, Chris, I've enjoyed this.
Yeah,
I
this has
appreciate
been a
you,
lot of
man.
fun.
That's the first. We're gonna probably take it out and go from here.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to sit and chat with you, and
bet.
I appreciate the friendship. And we
Of
have
course.
so many fun stories, so it's easy to sit here and spitball and chat
Yeah,
with you.
it
So
started.
thank you.
It started in a crazy way.
Yeah, totally.
and it's been a great friendship.
Yeah,
and we'll have to get out and play some golf.
Yep.
And
Before I sell those clubs on Facebook Marketplace.
are you selling the 200s?
No.
The 100s?
Yeah, exactly. But thanks again. I really
You
appreciate
bet.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Chris.
Yeah.
Right on. Appreciate the friendship. It's been a great time and a good thing. And all of you out there that have been watching and you have any questions or comments about the show, please let us know. I would really appreciate it. It's going to be available on our website. You can type in it. I'll get with Chris and we'll try to get you answers back. But if you could let people also know about Marshall's Mic and get on there and become a subscriber, and we'll move forward from them, trying to help people out become better and businesses to be more profitable. Appreciate it, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You bet, buddy.
Thanks.